Hello, hello. Welcome back, or if you're new, welcome. I'm so excited. We're on video number 2. I do want to tell you guys kind of my plan with all of this. So since I'm from Wisconsin, I really wanted to talk about Wisconsin murders and murderers. And then I plan to move to a new state. I don't know what state I'm gonna do next. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know. I kind of just wanted to do something different. I feel like a lot of other true crime podcasters, they kind of just like randomly do stories. And I kind of wanted to do something different. But I am learning there are a lot of Wisconsin stories. Like maybe I haven't looked in any other states currently because obviously I'm focusing on Wisconsin. So I'm sure there's other states that have a lot more, but us here in Wisconsin, we're a little crazy, it seems. I also created a case suggestion form or a case request form. I will list that down below. So if there is a story that you want me to cover or that you're like super interested in, let me know. Fill that form out and I will fit it in somewhere. So today I wanted to talk about the murders of Dennis and Merna Koula. If you watched my first video, it is around that area, that same town. So yeah, let's just jump right in. I do also want to say that these videos are about murder. So chances are they will have some sort of graphic descriptions. So just keep that in mind, okay? Dennis was born November 17th, 1941 in La Crosse, Wisconsin to Milo and Eileen Koula. After serving in the U.S. Navy, Dennis graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison, receiving a pharmaceutical degree, becoming a board-certified registered pharmacist. Dennis owned and operated various pharmacies in Wisconsin and also a Ford dealership in town, which he did end up selling in 2006. Merna was born November 6, 1944 in Iola, Wisconsin to Carl and Leola Price. Merna graduated from University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point before furthering her education at University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, receiving her master's degree in physical education. Merna worked with Dennis at his pharmacies before she started substitute teaching in Neillsville and West Salem schools. On December 16th, 1967, they got married and ended up celebrating over 42 years of marriage before their tragic murders. It was said Dennis and Merna enjoyed being together, traveling, attending musical concerts and theater productions, taking walks and gardening, but especially spending time with their grandchildren. Dennis and Merna were both on the verge of retirement when they were found shot execution style in their Wisconsin home on May 24th, 2010. That morning, Merna was scheduled to work at a nearby West Salem middle school. When she didn't show up, their son Eric received a call from a concerned school secretary. Eric was home with his wife when he received the call and told his wife he was going to drive over to his parents' house to see what was going on. The drive from Eric's house to Dennis and Merna's was about 10 minutes. When Eric arrived, he noticed his dad's truck was parked out front, which he thought was strange because his dad was supposed to be at work by now, and his mother's car was still in the garage. He walked through the garage and entered the home to find Dennis lying on the floor. Eric grabbed his dad's leg and started shaking it, realizing it was stiff, which is obviously not a good sign. This is when Eric decided to call 911. In Eric's frantic 911 call, he says, quote, "I am at my mom and dad's house. I came to check on them, and my dad's on the floor. He's not breathing." When police arrived, they noticed there were no signs of forced entry in the home, but the drawers of a dresser in an upstairs bedroom had been opened. They believed it was staged by the killer to look like a burglary. Myrna's purse was still untouched in the dining room, and Dennis's wallet with credit cards and cash was still tucked in his pocket. They also found lots of electronics, jewelry, a computer, credit cards, and cash in closets and dresser drawers that were undisturbed. This is where it gets a little graphic. Merna was shot in the back of the head as she was typing at the computer in their home office. When she was found, she was slumped over the computer. Her left arm was still on the keypad. Her right arm was resting on her right knee. This made investigators believe that she was not startled. She was comfortably sitting there and did not know what was coming. She died almost instantaneously. Dennis was shot shortly after he had returned home. He was lying face down in a pool of blood, holding his car keys in one hand, and he still had his coat on. So to police, it was clear that he had literally just walked in the door. They were both shot once with a .22 caliber rifle that was later found in an upstairs closet of the couple's home. It was taken to the lab to be tested for fingerprints, but no fingerprints were found, and they believed the gun was wiped down. Police first described the double murders as an ambush, but they would not have to speculate long. Investigators started to believe it may have been a case of mistaken identity after one of the couple's neighbors told them he was concerned it may have been a hit meant for him. The neighbor had told investigators that he was a president at a local bank and had been getting death threats as a result of the spiraling economy at the time. The most recent threat he had gotten had been just a few days earlier. The neighbor told police he was very concerned. He believed his life was in danger and he felt that he may be next. The neighbor's fears only deepened when he realized a search of his address on Google Maps mistakenly identified it as the Koula house. Which is so, could you imagine how that neighbor was feeling? So much anxiety, so much guilt. Like, holy shit. I totally was the one that was supposed to be murdered. But when authorities got the autopsy reports back, they learned that the Koulas had been killed a few days before their bodies were discovered, putting their deaths before the neighbor ever even received that threatening phone call. Whew! What a relief, right? I'd be shitting bricks if I was that neighbor. Using data gathered from the computer Merna was on and had been using at the time of her death, authorities were able to determine that she had been killed around 5:41 p.m. on Friday, May 21st. Which, okay, I'm not trying to make this about me. May 21st is my birthday, and it's just like heartbreaking that I was literally celebrating my 12th birthday while these poor, innocent, adorable couple were murdered. Like, I was probably having freaking dinner at McDonald's for my birthday, and this poor couple was murdered. Anyways, back to the story. Investigators started to piece together Dennis and Merna's last day of life. Merna was doing research on the home computer. Dennis had left the pharmacy around 5 p.m., and it took him about an hour to drive home. Investigators began chasing their first lead, the death threats to the neighbor. They found the culprit who made the calls but hit a dead end. The individual that they believed to make those threats would not have been able to carry out the homicides because he had a legitimate alibi at the time that Dennis and Merna were killed. After ruling out the neighbor's theory, investigators decided to take a look closer to home and spoke with both of the couple's children. Eric, a day trader, had been extremely emotional over the sudden deaths of his parents, but had also been willing to help investigators in any way that he could. It was said that Dennis and Eric were very close. Some people would say like bread and butter. They always talked. They'd have get-togethers all the time. Eric said that up until Dennis sold the dealership, they worked together 6 days a week side by side. Dennis and Merna were very close with Eric. So close, in fact, Dennis gave Eric hundreds of thousands of dollars to start a career as a day trader, buying and selling stocks. Their daughter Cindy also received money from their dad, but it was just an inadequate amount compared to her brother. On the day his parents were killed, Eric told investigators he worked most of the day on his computer. He stated he called his father around noon to talk about how the stock market was doing. At around 3:30 p.m., Eric said he went over to a friend's house to work on a bathroom renovation before going to 2 Shopko stores to buy his wife a specific type of plant for an anniversary gift around 5:30 p.m. Shortly after purchasing the gift, he went out to celebrate his 16th wedding anniversary with his wife and some friends. During questioning, Eric provided one possible clue. He said that his sister Cindy and her husband Patrick had been receiving money from his parents for years, and they had just told her they planned to cut her off the morning of the murders. Cindy relied on her parents and needed this money to pay her bills, and when Dennis had told Cindy that he was cutting her off, she didn't know how those bills were going to get paid. Investigators learned that both of the children stood to inherit around $700,000 after their parents' deaths. That's a ton of money. Oh my god. And that doesn't look good, right? We hear a lot of these stories. Murder for money. So, that's not good. Police called Cindy, who worked at a local collection agency, in for questioning. She admitted to being the black sheep of the family and told investigators that she believed her parents had always treated Eric as the favorite child, but adamantly denied having anything to do with their deaths. Cindy also had an alibi for that day. She told investigators that her timestamp at work proved that she got done at 4:45 p.m. She ran some errands and was seen on surveillance cameras at a local Quick Trip. If you don't know what a Quick Trip is, it's a Wisconsin thing, right? It's a gas station. It's like a convenience store. Something it relates to. I know in like Florida, there's like Wawas. That's kind of what it is. There's everything there. They got donies, donuts. Um, yeah, they got it all. Anyways, she ran some errands and was seen on surveillance cameras at a local Quick Trip purchasing items and arrived home in the vehicle her and her husband shared. Investigators took a close look at Cindy's husband, Patrick, who had been unemployed. Family and friends have said that Patrick did not get along with Dennis and Merna, and Patrick stood to inherit a substantial amount of money along with Cindy. The morning of the murders, Cindy had told her husband that her parents had decided to cut them off financially. Investigators also learned that Patrick could be violent when he drank alcohol and was a former Marine who knew how to handle weapons. So it's really not looking good, right? Patrick admitted he wasn't well liked by his wife's parents, but he insisted that at the time of the murders, he had been at home playing video games. Typical dude. His Xbox gaming console later confirmed his alibi. Thank God for Xbox, right? 4 days after the Koula's bodies were found, Eric told police he got a disturbing note in the mail that said, quote, "Fix you," and was worried he could be the next target. Quote, "The handwriting looked like it could have been done by someone very young. It was so strange," one of the detectives said. Quote, "It was probably written that way so a handwriting analysis couldn't be done." Investigators had a huge break in the case after examining Dennis and Myrna's bank records. Strangely, Eric had cashed a check for $50,000 from his parents after the murders, which he never told investigators about. When Eric was questioned about this $50,000 check he deposited, he said he had gotten the check from his dad several days before, but didn't cash it till Saturday, the day after the murders. Okay. Investigators wondered if Eric failed to tell them about the check, what else was he not telling them? This is when they took a closer look at his entire story, starting with his frantic 911 call. After listening to the 911 call again, they realized that Eric never actually asks for help for his parents. Normally, in like these types of situations, the person calling is like, "Help, someone come help, we need someone here now," you know what I mean? But Eric never said anything like that. He basically just said, "My parents are dead," and that's that. So, red flag number 1. Investigators took a closer look at Eric's financial situation and discovered that Eric told everybody he was extremely successful with his day trading, but in reality, Eric was actually broke and had even kept the secret from his wife. Which is crazy to me because, like, it makes sense if they don't share, like, a bank account, but if they do, Don't you think she's checking that bank account? She's spending money. I check my bank account like every day. Even if I don't spend money, I'm just like, did some random thing come out? I don't know. I didn't do enough research to figure out whether they shared a bank account or not. But still, like, I don't know. I don't know how you hide that from your spouse. But I'm not in the situation, and I hope to God I never am. So, Eric's parents had given him nearly $700,000 over the years to fund his career, which is absolutely nuts. That's a lot of money. They found back in 2007 and 2008 he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in his account, and when questioned, Eric said he went through one of the worst stock market episodes since the Great Depression and lost it all. $700,000? You lost it all? Jesus. Okay. The stock market drop, combined with Eric's incompetence, left him broke and more than $150,000 in debt to creditors, including the IRS. It's not looking good, bud. Eric decided to turn to his father for help. Just one day before the murders, Eric said his father gave him a signed blank check. Eric now admitted that he, not his father, had filled out that check for $50,000. A family friend that was very close with Dennis recalls Dennis stating that he was going to be cutting off his children the morning of the murders. Detectives had now learned that at the same time they had stopped financially supporting Cindy, they had also stopped supporting Eric, giving their son a motive for murder. Troubled by the coincidence, they decided to take a closer look into Eric's alibi on the day of the murders. Eric was asked where he was at 5:41 p.m. that afternoon. He says he was either on his way to Shopko or he was already at Shopko. He said he had gone to 2 Shopkos that day, and when he bought the plant for his wife at the second Shopko, he had a receipt saved in case his wife didn't like the plant and wanted to return it. Shopko, I don't know if Shopko is like all over the place. Shopko's not even like a thing anymore, but it's kind of like a Walmart, I'd say. The timestamp on the receipt reads 6:15 p.m., but deputies could only find evidence that Eric had gone to 1 Shopko, not 2. Their suspicions were confirmed when they dug deeper and learned that Eric had actually left his friend's home earlier than he had told investigators. This now opened up that period in his timeline where he had the opportunity to drive to his parents' house and kill them before heading over to Shopko trying to create an alibi. Eric was now the target of the investigation, even though he didn't know it. For 2 months, authorities quietly gathered more evidence before bringing him in for questioning. Detectives first questioned him about being at the first Shopko. They tell Eric they have looked over surveillance video over and over again, but he is nowhere to be seen. Eric insists he was at that Shopko. Detectives then move on to the $50,000 check. Eric says that his father had given him that check and signed it before giving it to him. But what Eric doesn't know is that a handwriting expert has determined that his father's signature on that check is a forgery. Detectives tell Eric they know that he filled it out and that his dad didn't sign it. They were also able to tie the "fixed you" note to Eric himself through the envelope, which matched others found inside his home. Eric continues to tell detectives that he had nothing to do with the murders and he didn't hurt his parents. At this time, Eric was allowed to leave the interrogation room, but minutes later, deputies put Eric in handcuffs and arrested him on 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. Eric's wife could not accept the idea of him hurting his parents. She said he had never hurt or hit anyone in his life. They also questioned Eric's son, who said, quote, "I've never seen my father angry enough where he would strike anything or raise his voice to the point where you would consider it yelling or screaming." In June 2012, La Crosse County District Attorney Tim Grunke, sorry Tim, if I butchered that name, I'm so sorry, began the case against Eric Koula. Tim Grunke told the court, quote, "And the truth is, the defendant is guilty of murdering his parents. We wanted to lay out for the jury that Eric was a man of secrets. He's not who he appears to be. He's somebody who has a desperate financial motive for the crime." Co-prosecutor Gary Freiberg says that desperation led Eric to kill the two people who had long financed his life. Disgusting. In a risky move, Eric decided to take the stand at his own trial. Eric denied that he killed his parents because he wanted to speed up the inheritance process, but after being confronted with indisputable evidence, Eric was forced to admit that he did sign his father's name on that $50,000 check. He said he didn't tell investigators at the time because he thought it would look bad. Yeah, no shit, bud. Eric says, quote, I've signed my dad's signature on hundreds and hundreds of checks, from personal, paying bills at the house, to at the store when we had double signature checks, hundreds and hundreds of times. Eric's defense attorney says, quote, this case should have never seen the inside of a courtroom. There's no evidence, no DNA, no fingerprints, no fiber evidence, no hair evidence. My gosh, the guy spent the whole afternoon grouting a bathroom. There's no grout at the scene. Not one thing links Eric Koula to those homicides. But during the trial, the defense drops a major bomb. They bring up the fixed you note that Eric found in his mailbox. The day that he found it and called police, he told officers that the note was from the real killer. Okay. Eric admitted during the trial that he was the one that wrote the note and put it in his mailbox. Is he not, admitting right now? Is that not good enough? I don't know. That sounds like he's admitting. What do I know? I don't know anything. The prosecution argued that it's one more sign of Eric's guilt, and they had other evidence against Eric, most notably his growing financial crisis. Forensic accountant Mary Jo Werner says Eric's assets had dwindled to nearly nothing. It was recorded in May 2010. Eric had $1,342 left in his bank account. Close friends to Eric and his wife, who had met up with them for dinner the night of the murders, states, quote, he was probably a little more cheerful than usual because it was his anniversary and they were celebrating, but it was just Eric as usual. After 14 days spent listening to the testimony of 57 witnesses, the jury gets the case. The jury deliberated for 20 hours over 3 days. Eric Koula was found guilty of killing both his parents as well as an additional charge for forging his father's name on that check. 2 months after the guilty verdict, Eric was back in court for sentencing. Eric chose to speak one last time, stating, quote, I have been convicted of this crime, Your Honor, that I did not do. I did not kill my mom and dad. I'm going to go on and continue to fight and prove that I'm innocent, to show people that I did not do this. I will not quit. Whoever is responsible for this is still out there. Judge Scott Horn hands down Eric's sentence, saying, quote, you took the life of 2 people who gave you life, and you'll spend the rest of your life incarcerated. That's a freaking mic drop, don't you think? Eric Koula was convicted of the murders of his parents. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 6 years for forgery. So, there have been some mixed responses about this case that I've read. Some people believe that Eric did not kill his parents and that his sister actually did. What do you think? Do you think he did it? Do you think his sister did it? Do you think it was just some random hit? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!